Hello, I'm one of these days football, and welcome back to our Fantasy A-League series. This will be our Game Week 3 review and our Game Week 4 team selection for the 2022-23 Fantasy A-League season. To begin Game Week 4 preparation, we're first going to look back at our Game Week 3, see what worked and what didn't. As you can see on screen, we had a total score of 88, which actually ended up being quite a strong score, and I'm very happy with that high score so far, moving us to a rank of 2070th, going up about 700 places in the standings, so very, very happy to see that. Also, it's just one of those really, really great things in fantasy when you captain your highest scoring player. It makes you feel good, makes you feel like you didn't lose or waste any points, and captaining Craig Goodwin this week seemed to be the right decision, paid off. It just makes you feel good when you captain that player who is your highest scorer on the week. So that felt really good to get right. It was also extremely positive to see the faith in Charlie Austin pay off as he did score that goal. Going forward, I actually think he is a buy, maybe, because he did have a little bit of a price reduction, but we'll go into that in a second. Beyond that, it was really good to see Aspropotomides and Glover come in with a solid points return for their first game. They were two clearly really good pickups, especially Glover with his matches going forward. I think he's going to keep 3 more clean sheets, which just looks like a really, really strong pickup. The only downside, which maybe cost us 5 or 6 points this game week, was that Scott Jamieson did get injured just before the game and was a really late out. So that probably did end up costing us 5 or 6 points as Elliott came into play. I also learnt more about the rule with the boost transfer. So I thought originally you could just boost any player out even if they had played for a player that hasn't played yet. That's not true. The player has to have obviously not played, and the new player must have not played as well. So that could have been an example when Jamieson went out to use my boost transfer. And I was thinking about that because I had learnt that rule at that time, because I was talking last week about potentially boost transferring Aspropotomides out if he didn't score well, but I decided that if Jamison's only out for that 1 week, it's actually better just to keep him because we will want him for the next 3 games, and that seems to be true. And as such, I think that will be the right decision. It might have cost us 4 or 5 points, but we didn't have to spend 2 transfers in getting him in and getting him back out again for a potential at higher points when Elliott. And we also had the Ben Warland on the bench. Both had 4, which is plenty okay. It's not going to hurt us too much. This is the first week we've had price changes, and it's really good just to look at who's going up in price, who's going down, because there is such a big swing, especially in this game, where we can see players like Aspropotomides close to doubling his price. Well, not really, but he did add a substantial amount, maybe 150% of his price. So it's really good to have him, to see him go up that much. Also Glover, both of those are obviously players that we only brought in last week, but have added a lot of team value within just 1 week. Also really good to see Hingett go up in price. I did think from the start of the season he was undervalued as he was going to be playing, so that idea paying off, really, really good. From our loss column, I'm confused as to why Craig Goodwin has gone down by nearly $22,000. I don't understand. I feel like you got to back him in. He's been a good performer. Still, he did have his best week last week, so if you dropped him then, you probably have paid for it. Maybe people bring him back in and he'll be back in the green arrows in a couple weeks' time. But we'll see. I think Craig Goodwin's a really great player and you should keep him in your team. If you don't have him, he's probably a buy right now, actually. And that goes for Charlie Austin as well. I can see people why they were upset with Charlie Austin, especially with a lot of forwards like Lolly and McLaren scoring so highly as to why you would sell Charlie Austin after the first 2 game week blanks from him. However, though, I still think he's a great forward and can score as much as those other players have been scoring. And I would say now with this tiny little price decrease, he is actually a buy. If you don't have Charlie Austin in your squad and you've got someone who you can upgrade to him, I think he's a buy, because I think this week he's probably going to score a goal against this victory team who have been conceding a lot of goals. Granted, they did have a red card in the last game. They've still been conceding a lot of chances, a lot of good shots. I think Charlie Austin's a buy this week, especially with that price drop. Nani's the last guy we'll comment on for our loss column. I'm thinking that, yes, he probably hasn't performed to his points potential or what we expected for that price tag. But in watching the games, I still think he's a good outlet for Victory. He really should have had 1 or 2 goals by now. He's probably been a bit unlucky. He did get an assist in the first game week. And, when he gave away that penalty and Victory did get a red card in the last game, he ended up getting -2, which did cost us. Obviously that's normally about a 7-point swing, because you'd say maybe Nani will at worst get 5 points, but no, that -2 is a 7-point swing. However, I still think Victory like to go forward a lot. Even with 10 men against City, they were still coming forward in that second half a lot. I think that Nani is still a good player to have. I think he's the Victory player that I want to have. And I can see why you'll have dropped him, because he probably has underperformed, especially with that -2 this week. But you can't look at the past. You got to look at the future. And I think Nani has that ability to score lots and lots of points, and has maybe just been a bit unlucky so far in this first 3 weeks. Moving on to the squad selection for Game Week 4, you'll notice that we haven't had a transfer tab because we haven't made any transfers, so this will just be a straight up selection. In goals, pretty obviously, we're going to have Glover with Hall on the bench. Now, Glover, I did bring in and comment on last week the fact that maybe the game against Victory might be hard to keep a clean sheet in, but he did it anyway with a 14-point. And then the next 3 games, he actually looks really solid and a really high chance to keep those 3 clean sheets. And that's why I went with him over the other goalkeeping options. And that reward has not only paid off in his profit margin, but his points last week, and I think his points in the next 3 game weeks. I think he's probably the goalkeeper to have if you have an ability to swap out your goalkeeper. Beyond that, in defence, we're going to start Jamison, as he has been announced as back into the City squad. So hopefully he will be starting and playing. Aspropotomides has been scoring outrageously well. And I think if you have him, you probably want to be playing him. And Ben Wallen gets our last spot in defence because Adelaide are coming up against a Perth team. And honestly, I think Perth are pretty bad right now. I think Perth are not good. They're a team to target if you can. If you have the ability to target a team, I think Perth is one of those teams to target. Maybe Wellington as well. We'll see where things lie a bit. Hingett is going to drop to the bench this week, and that's mainly because he's coming up against Melbourne Victory. Now, as I commented before, I think Melbourne Victory are a side that want to attack with vigour. They want to attack a lot. They might not be quite good at defending just yet, but they do want to attack. So I can see both sides going in, both sides scoring a goal in that Victory Raw matchup. And for that, I have decided to drop Hingett. I think when Jamison hopefully starts, Aspropotomides and Wallen, they will offer our best outlet in defence. Through the midfield, you can see we've decided to captain Craig Goodwin again. Again, I said let's target that Perth fixture for Adelaide. And with Craig performing quite well in the first 3 weeks, especially last week getting that 15 points, I think we're going to back him in. Nani, again, stated that I think Victory are going to go forward. If you're going to go forward for Melbourne Victory, Nani's the player to have for me. Troisi is the only player currently who I'm thinking about transferring out. I'm going to be looking at doing a match review on the Central Coast Mariners Western United game, because I do want to see if Diamanti gets minutes. If Diamanti gets minutes and he plays well, I think next week you'll be seeing me transfer Troisi out, Diamanti in. Hopefully that'll be my first match review video where I'm able to really go into depth about what I thought worked well for either team, how they played. That is a goal of mine. Hopefully that'll be up on the channel next week. But Troisi is probably the only player right now who we're looking to replace. Ballard with a 5-pointer last week, very strong for his price tag again. Probably a bit unlucky not to get a bump up in price, mainly because he and the Central Coast Mariners didn't play in Game Week 1 due to weather conditions. Alagic on the bench, again, just cheapest player. And then we have the forward line staying the same. We are going to back the big 3 in again. I stated before, I think Charlie Austin will score this week against Victory. They look weak in defence. They've already conceded a lot of goals and had a lot of big chances. So I think Charlie Austin, with his recent small, I know, price drop, if you have a forward slot, he's probably the one to bring in if you don't have, even if you have the big boys in Lolly and McLaren, I think Charlie Austin at that bit cheaper price tag might be the one to target this week. Arzani, I think he's just been playing well. I don't see any issue with him. I think a lot of people on the Craig Noon, obviously after a really massive score last week, but Arzani probably just as likely to get those returns for MacArthur. Cummings, I think, again, another player in that forward line that if Central Coast score, Cummings is going to have something to say about it more often than not. Probably 70-80% of the time when Central Coast score, something is going to be happening through Jason Cummings. And I think for that price tag, he just offers so much. He allows me to facilitate the rest of my team with a few good players in defence and midfield as well. I think that Jason Cummings is a really strong pick this week. Again, I know McLaren and Lolly are performing very, very well, but I think this front three has the potential to outscore them for lower price, allowing us to have players like Goodwin and Jamison throughout the other key positions on the park. Anyway, that is going to be my Game Week 4 squad selection for Fantasy A-League 2022-23. If you have any thoughts or comments, let me know down below. I'll see you guys next week, hopefully with a review on the Mariners Western United game and with a Game Week 5 squad selection video. Thank you very much. Bye.